Your last name is not an accident. It is a photograph taken 700 years ago and never deleted. Every time someone calls your name, they are speaking a word that froze in the 13th century, the exact moment your ancestor's identity was written into the records of medieval England. Your surname exposes what they did with their hands, where they lived, or who they served. And in some cases, it hides something far more powerful, a Norman bloodline disguised behind an English translation. Right now, in the 21st century, you carry a medieval secret your family never told you, because nobody alive remembers when it was written down. Today we are decoding 10 English surnames, counting down from number 10 to number 1, the name that will change how you see the most common surname in the English-speaking world. These are not just words. They are occupations, locations, and in some cases, titles of power that your ancestors carried in the decades after the Norman conquest of 1066. England in the 13th and 14th centuries was a society being rebuilt from the ground up. The Normans had seized the land, French became the language of the nobility, and as the country stabilized, officials began writing down surnames for tax records, land grants, and legal disputes. Whatever your ancestor did in that moment, their trade, their location, their lord, became their family name forever. By the end of this video, you will know how to decode your own, and if your surname appears on this list, you will discover a medieval identity your family has been carrying without knowing it. Number 10. Cooper. This surname comes from Middle English cooper, derived from the Latin cupa, a barrel or cask. A cooper was a barrel maker. In medieval England, barrels were not a convenience, they were infrastructure. Every liquid, wine, beer, water, oil, salted fish, moved in wooden casks. A cooper shaped the staves, fitted the iron hoops, sealed the joints with rushes and tar. Without coopers, trade stopped. The Guild of Coopers in London was chartered in 1396 and membership was restricted. If your surname is Cooper, your ancestor was part of a craft guild that controlled access to a skill the entire economy depended on. They were not laborers, they were specialists. Number 9. Turner, Middle English tourneur, from Old French tourner, to turn. A turner operated a lathe, carving wood or ivory into spindles, bowls, chair legs, and ornamental pieces. The lathe was powered by a foot treadle or an apprentice pulling a cord. The turner controlled the chisel with absolute precision. In the 14th century, a skilled turner could produce 50 identical spindles in a day, an impossible feat by hand. The surname appears in tax records across England from 1270 onward. If you carry this name, your ancestor possessed a mechanical skill that separated them from common laborers. They worked with their hands, but they controlled a machine. Number 8. Baker. Old English, baker, from bacan, to bake. But here's what the surname hides. In medieval England, most families did not have ovens. Ovens were communal, expensive to build, and dangerous to operate inside a timber house. A baker was not someone who made bread at home. A baker operated the village oven and baked everyone else's loaves for a fee. In 1266, the Assize of Bread and Ale was enacted, a law that regulated the weight and price of bread and punished bakers who cheated. Your ancestor, if they carried this surname, held a monopoly on the most essential food in medieval England, and they were under legal surveillance every single day. Number 7. Tailor. Middle English tailor, from Old French tailleur, to cut. A tailor cut and sewed cloth into garments, but the surname conceals a Norman origin. After 1066, the Normans brought French tailoring techniques to England. Before the conquest, most English clothing was simple: tunics, cloaks, basic cuts. The Normans introduced fitted garments: hose, doublets, gowns with complex seams. A tailor was not a seamstress stitching repairs. A tailor measured a client, cut patterns from expensive wool or linen, and assembled garments that announced status. If your surname is Taylor, your ancestor likely worked for a Norman lord or a wealthy English merchant trying to dress like one. The name is English. The craft was imported. Number 6. Fletcher. Middle English Fletchier, from Old French flèche, an arrow. A Fletcher made arrows, and in medieval England, arrows were military equipment regulated by law. The Assize of Arms of 1181 required every free man to own a bow and arrows. A Fletcher shaped the wooden shaft, fitted the iron or steel arrowhead forged by a blacksmith, and attached the fletching, feathers that stabilized flight. Goose feathers were standard. Swan feathers were superior and reserved for the wealthy. At the Battle of Crécy in 1346, English longbowmen fired arrows made by Fletchers across England. If your surname is Fletcher, your ancestor armed the English military. Their craft was essential to every war England fought for 3 centuries. Number 5. Mason. Old French maçon, from Frankish makjo, to make. A mason worked in stone, but the surname reveals a specific historical window, the explosion of stone church construction in the 12th and 13th centuries. Before the Norman conquest, most English churches were timber. The Normans rebuilt them in stone. Romanesque arches, thick walls, defensive towers. A mason carved blocks, laid foundations, shaped columns and arches. The Guild of Masons guarded their techniques jealously. Apprenticeships lasted 7 years. If your surname is Mason, your ancestor was part of the workforce that physically built Norman England. The castles, cathedrals, and manor houses that still stand today were shaped by men who passed this name to you. They did not design the buildings, but they made them real. We have reached the halfway mark. If discovering what your surname hides fascinates you, subscribe. Every week, we decode the surnames of a new region. Number 4. Wright. Old English wurta, from workin, to work or make. But Wright was never used alone. It was always attached to a material. Wheelwright made wheels. Wainwright made wagons. Shipwright built ships. Millwright constructed mills. The standalone surname Wright appeared when the specific craft was dropped from records, but the family kept the occupational label. By the 14th century, Wright indicated a skilled maker of large, complex objects, someone who worked with wood, iron, and joinery. If your surname is Wright, your ancestor built things that required multiple materials and advanced engineering for the medieval period. They were not carpenters, they were constructor engineers. Number 3. Miller. Middle English milleret, from mill, a mill, but Miller was not a generic surname. A miller operated a water mill, or windmill, that ground grain into flour, and mills were not owned by the miller. They were owned by the lord of the manor. The miller paid rent and kept a portion of every sack milled, typically 1/16. In Domesday Book of 1086, over 6,000 water mills are recorded across England. Every village had one, and every miller was suspected of theft. There was a medieval proverb, "An honest miller has a golden thumb," meaning such a person did not exist. Millers could easily take extra flour, and nobody could prove it. If your surname is Miller, your ancestor operated the most essential machine in medieval England, and everyone assumed they were cheating. Number 2. Knight. Middle English knight, originally meaning a servant or military follower, but by the 13th century it meant a mounted warrior with land granted by the king. And here is the secret. Knight as a surname does not mean your ancestor was actually knighted. It means they worked for a knight, lived on a knight's estate, or in rare cases, were the younger son of a knighted family who inherited the name but not the title. True knights passed down their land and titles through primogeniture. The eldest son inherited everything. Younger sons got the surname Knight and nothing else. If your last name is Knight, your ancestor lived inside the knightly class but stood on its edge. They were close enough to nobility to carry the name, but they did not inherit the power. And now we arrive at number 1. The surname that appears more than any other in England, the United States, Australia, and Canada. The surname that feels ordinary, common, unremarkable. But when you decode what it meant in the 13th century, it reveals something shocking. Number 1. Smith. Old English smith, from Proto-Germanic smithas, one who strikes metal. A smith was a blacksmith, and in medieval England, a blacksmith was not a laborer. A blacksmith controlled fire and metal. They forged plowshares that fed the village, horseshoes that moved armies, weapons that defended the manor, tools that built churches. Without a smith, medieval society stopped functioning. And here is the revelation your surname has been hiding. In Old English and Norse cultures, smiths were considered semi-magical. They transformed earth into iron, red heat into tools, formless metal into instruments of survival. The god Wayland the Smith appears in Anglo-Saxon poetry as a supernatural craftsman. Vikings believed smiths possessed secret knowledge. In the 13th century, when surnames froze, Smith was not the most common occupational surname because smithing was unskilled work. It was the most common because every village desperately needed one, and respected the man who could do it. If your surname is Smith, your ancestor was the most essential craftsman in medieval England. They were not ordinary. They held power over the one craft nobody else could replicate. The name feels common now because that power was needed everywhere. But the name itself is a 700-year-old reminder. Your family once controlled fire. Let me tell you what just happened. You have been carrying these surnames your entire life, saying them at roll call, writing them on forms, introducing yourself with them, and you never knew they were job descriptions written in Middle English. Cooper, Turner, Baker, Taylor, Fletcher, Mason, Wright, Miller, Knight, Smith. Every single one is a medieval occupation that froze into your family identity the moment English officials started writing surnames into tax records and parish registers. Your name is not a label, it is a timestamp. It marks the exact generation when your ancestors' profession became their permanent identity. But there is something deeper here. These surnames were not chosen. They were assigned. Your ancestor did not wake up one morning and decide to call themselves Smith. An official wrote it into a record because that is what they saw your ancestor doing. And once it was written, it became hereditary. Their children inherited it. Their grandchildren carried it. And 700 years later, you introduce yourself with a word that describes someone else's hands at work. That is what a surname is. It is memory made permanent. It is the moment when your family became legible to the state, to the church, to history. Before surnames, your ancestors were free-floating. After surnames, they were traceable. And every single one of these names tells you exactly where in medieval England your family stood. Smith was not just common because smithing was widespread. It was common because it was indispensable. Every manor needed a blacksmith. Every army needed a blacksmith. Every construction project needed a blacksmith. When William the Conqueror compiled Domesday Book in 1086, blacksmiths were recorded separately from other craftsmen because they were that critical to the economy. A village without a smith could not plow fields, shoe horses, or repair tools. The entire medieval economy depended on men who could heat iron to 1500 degrees Celsius and shape it before it cooled. That required knowledge of metallurgy, fire control, and timing that took years to learn. Smiths were not interchangeable laborers. They were specialists with irreplaceable skills. And because of that, the surname Smith exploded across England. It became the default occupational surname because it represented the one craft that could not be outsourced, imported, or skipped. If your family name is Smith, your ancestor held the single most essential position in medieval English society. The name became common because the need was universal, but the skill was rare. And here is the final revelation. Smith is not common because it was a peasant name. It is common because it was a power name. In every village, the smith was one of the few men who could not be easily replaced. Lords needed them, peasants needed them, the church needed them. And because of that, smiths accumulated respect, small amounts of wealth, and social mobility. By the 14th century, some smiths owned their own forges. Some became part of the Guild of Blacksmiths in London, which controlled quality and training across England. The surname exploded, not because smithing was lowly work, but because it was skilled, essential, and irreplaceable work that gave your ancestor leverage in a rigid feudal society. Your surname is not a mark of obscurity. It is a mark of survival. 700 years ago, your ancestor controlled fire, shaped metal, and made themselves indispensable. And because they did, their name, your name, spread across England and eventually across the world. That is what Smith means. It means your family learned to make themselves necessary, and necessity is the most powerful form of inheritance. Your surname is not just the label on your birth certificate. It is a 700-year-old contract between your ancestors and the English state. The moment it was written into a parish register or a tax roll, it became permanent. It survived wars, plagues, migrations, and revolutions. It crossed oceans. It adapted to new alphabets. But it never forgot what it meant. Cooper, Turner, Baker, Taylor, Fletcher, Mason, Wright, Miller, Knight, Smith. These are not random words. They are frozen photographs of medieval England, and you are holding them in your hands every time you write your name. The medieval world is not gone. It is written into your identity, and now you know exactly what it says. Drop your English surname in the comments below. If it appeared in this video, you now know the medieval secret it has been hiding. And if it did not, write it anyway. Your surname has a story, and there is a strong chance it is waiting in the next video. Because every English surname is a time capsule, and this channel exists to open them.